Hi. Hi, everybody. So we're going to talk about QPR for youth. And here's where everything kind of comes together with what Marjorie and Nicole were talking about. So we have mental health, trauma, all coming together that might lead somebody down the path of suicide. And what we're going to talk to now is about how to prevent that. Okay? QPR stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. Okay? We're going to dig into each one of those as we go through. This is not intended as treatment or counseling. This is something that all of you can do, okay? With your family members, with your loved ones, with your colleagues at work. This is something that we all can do. But first, let's talk about suicide contagion, right? Copycat suicide. I think that's one of the biggest issues that's been raised about the series. It is real. There is research that shows that being exposed to suicide then puts you at risk yourself for engaging in those kinds of behaviors. As Marjorie was saying, and Nicole was saying, if you're struggling already, especially our youth, you're even at greater risk, okay? But the answer to that is to have a dialogue, an open conversation, okay? We need to be talking about suicide readily, not after it's happened, but before it's happening. It just needs to become a part of our conversation when we're talking about healthy living. So let's talk about some myths that are out there, okay? This is probably a really important factor here with what we're going over today. No one can stop suicide, it's inevitable. Well, that's just not true. We know that people who are struggling with suicide can be helped, and if they get that help, they're most likely not going to go on and engage in that behavior again, and they're going to live a healthy life. Okay, so that's the silver lining here, that we can engage and help people before they even go down that path again. So the next big one is confronting somebody who's suicidal, asking them the question, do you feel like killing yourself? That's going to increase the likelihood that they will do it. And that's just absolutely false. It's not true. Research shows that if we ask the question, that people feel better. We decrease the anxiety, and they're more likely to start talking about it. Because most people who are struggling with suicidality are dying to talk about it. They literally just want to talk about it. And if you think about Hannah in the end, she really wanted to talk about it. She even tried to talk about it with the counselor. And I'm going to be referring a lot to that last episode with the counselor because I think it's just a treasure trove of what not to do when working with somebody who's struggling. And I want to point out where he missed the boat. And Marjorie's done it already a little bit. Only experts can prevent suicide, but that's absolutely not true. That's why we're here today. All of us can prevent suicide. We just need to be ready to ask the question and be brave. And it's hard. It's a hard question to ask. It truly is because it's kind of scary. But we can do that and know that you're getting somebody help. So suicide prevention is everybody's business, and we really need to get to a place where we're just talking about it. It's a part of the conversation in our schools and at our work. So suicide people keep plans to themselves. Absolutely not true. Unfortunately, they are telling us, and I think Hannah was telling us, right? In the end there, she was struggling, and she tried to reach out to get the help. Most people who are struggling with suicidality are telegraphing some kind of message that is happening. And we just need to be aware of those. We need to be aware of what those signs are. We're going to dive into those. And then the last one here, suicide youth. Keep track of time here, sorry. That youth tell friends, and then those friends will tell adults. Well, most young don't tell adults, okay? They keep it within themselves. And I think that was a theme throughout the entire series. These youth were struggling with something really deep, and they couldn't tell the adults because they were afraid to get in trouble. They were terrified, okay? And that means we need to be, as Marjorie talked about eloquently, opening up and being ready to listen and not to shame or blame or get our youth in trouble. We need to find out what's going on, and we'll deal with the consequences. There might be unforeseeable consequences, but we can talk about that, okay? So clues. There are warning signs, and we cannot ignore them, okay? So research shows that by the time we're 35, most of us will have had a thought of suicide, right? And luckily, none of us act on that. Most of us don't act on that. It's a fleeting thought, we think about our loved ones, and we move on, okay? But for some folks, it becomes the focus of what they would like to use to solve their problems, okay? So threats to kill oneself, currently talking about suicide, making plans, anxious, depressed. Nicole and Marjorie talk about all of these things. I like to say that if you notice someone is just not right, and they've gone through something very serious, find out what's going on. Start having a conversation with them. Are you okay? What's going on in your life today? Okay? Other clues, talking about no reason to live or no purpose in life. You know, Nicole talked about adolescents who move through their early adolescence and they start to get different interests. But if you have that soccer player who doesn't want to play anymore, okay, things like that, they start to drop out of sports and they don't want to go to school anymore. That's something to be very concerned about. Anger, irritability, engaging in high-risk behavior when that's out of ordinary for this individual. And then, of course, statements of hopelessness and despair. So that is the cornerstone of suicidal ideation and suicidal behavior, feeling hopeless, feeling like there's nothing I can do to get out of this mess, so I'm going to end it. But unfortunately, it's a permanent solution to temporary problems, right? That's what our youth, that's what everybody needs to understand, that it's permanent, okay? And it's not the right answer. It's just not. So very direct cues. I've decided to kill myself, okay? When you see these, you have to get help for somebody immediately. This last one, Hannah said directly to the counselor, I need people to stop, life to stop. That's very concerning. Get that individual help immediately. Don't blow it off. Give them space to talk about it. Don't guilt or shame. Okay? Don't make them feel like there's something wrong if they're feeling that way. I think a natural reaction, especially if it's someone we love, is to get angry. Why would you do that to me? But that just adds more to the feeling of guilt and shame that they're doing something wrong or they did something wrong. More indirect, I'm tired of life, I just can't go on. Pretty soon you won't have to worry about me. So Marjorie talked about that in the joiner slide, that individuals who are struggling with suicidality, they feel like a burden to all of us. And it's a distorted thought, right? Because if they only knew how much we love them, if they only knew, right? But in those moments, they can't see it. They can't see past that. They can't see past their pain that's causing them to feel like ending their life is the best solution to their problem, okay? And then at the end here, Hannah says some of this as well to the counselor. I feel lost, sort of empty. I feel empty. That numbness, that not connected to the world around them. These are huge alarms. These are huge signs that we need to get this individual help immediately. Other behavioral clues. So the first one, any previous suicide attempts. That's an interesting one because, as I said earlier on, someone who's attempted most likely gets help and goes on to live a healthy life, a happy life. But it also puts you at risk, okay? So the importance is getting individuals help and talking about what happened in that attempt so they can work through their problems in a different way and develop problem-solving skills, okay? Marjorie talked about safety planning and developing tools that when I feel like this, I can do something else. Impulsivity, giving away personal prized possessions, things like that. Destructive behavior, cutting. So cutting is an interesting behavior in that someone can cut to release pain and to focus the pain, the emotional pain they're feeling, and not have any thoughts of wanting to die. And then there are some who cut as a way to practice, to desensitize themselves so they can then go through with suicide. So cutting is a very concerning behavior that needs immediate attention and treatment. Okay? Situational cues that we need to be aware of. Being expelled from school, loss of a major relationship is huge for our young folks. That first heartbreak can be devastating, as Marjorie mentioned, so we can't minimize that. As adults, we've probably been through a couple, so we're like, oh, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal in that person's life. That young person may be experiencing some really strong emotions for the very first time in their life, okay? So allowing that to happen and being there and providing a safe place for them to express those emotions is really important. But again, the death of a friend, family member, especially by suicide, and that's where we get into this contagion factor, the copycat suicide. Those people we need to wrap around them and talk about what they're thinking and feeling so that they don't make that same mistake. More situational cues, of course, being a victim of an assault or bullying, okay? And that was Hannah. You know, Hannah had some very horrible acts committed to her, okay? And it rocked her world. She did not know how to get out of it, you know? She did not. So we need to be vigilant when our young folks are not acting right or something seems wrong. Give them time and space to know that they can talk about it. If you remember, the counselor's phone kept ringing, right? That was so annoying to me. Turn off the ringer, please, and listen to this young lady. She's trying to tell you something, okay? So here's the thing. If you think somebody's thinking about suicide, they probably are. So ask the question. And if they say no, then you know. But you might have to ask them again, because they might continue to behave in a way that seems suspicious to you. Okay? Other areas of concern, sudden decline in academics, of course, an increase in empathy, or just not, connected to the world around them. Okay? So we're going to talk about asking the question. So tips for asking the suicide question. In crisis, we ask this question daily, because that's one of the major things that we do in crisis. But for most of us, that's not what we do in our daily lives. We probably never even asked the question before. And it does get caught in your throat, especially if it's someone you love, if it's your child, or your mother, or your father, or your sister, or your brother. It's okay to practice asking that question. And I'm serious about that. We lost 42,000 people last year to suicide. 42,000. We lost 32,000 to heroin overdose. And that's getting a lot of attention. And out of those 32,000, we actually don't even know how many of those people might have been engaging in suicide, because it's just too hard to tell. Okay? So this is a major problem. We just need to talk about it. Talking about it is the antidote. Okay? And so is hope. So the less direct approach, have you been feeling unhappy lately? Sometimes when people are feeling unhappy or feeling down, they might have thoughts of wanting to kill themselves. It's important to say, kill yourself as well. I know that's pretty hard to hear, but if you say, I just want to hurt, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Well, they might not see it as hurting themselves. They might see it as a relief, or that they're getting rid of a burden that they are to you. So you have to use the very specific words. But it's okay to build yourself up to that. Did you ever wish you could go to sleep and never wake up? And these are techniques that we use in training our crisis workers to build up to asking the question. The more direct approach, are you thinking about killing yourself? How not to ask the question. Not think of killing yourself, are you? That's dumb. That's a stupid idea. What does that do? Immediately turns the person off. We're judging them. Okay? We're making them feel like it's shady, it's guilty, and we just cannot do that. Okay? It's more common than we think. The thought process is more common than we want to give it credit for. So how to persuade someone? Give them enough time to speak. And there's this thing that we talk about in our world called reflective listening skills, where someone will tell you something and you tell them back what they said. So you're telling me that you just had a breakup with your girlfriend and you're feeling really sad. And you can't get up out of bed at night. And you've been drinking some of your parents' liquor to get to sleep at night. Like, give it back to them so they know that you're listening. Offer hope in any form that you possibly can. Hope is the cornerstone to defeating suicide. So hopelessness is what they're feeling. So provide them as much hope as you possibly can. I will go with you to get help. I will take you to get help. You're going to come with me. But most important, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to kill yourself. If you go, I will be devastated. You are not a burden to me. And whatever you're facing today, we can get through it together. Okay, we can get through it together. All right? You know, that last scene with the counselor, with Hannah, was just really hard for me to watch, if I'm really honest with everybody. As a counselor, there was just red flags left and right. That young lady should have never left that office. That's just the truth, right? And that's the conversation that we can have today because of this series. Good or bad, it's out there. So we have to listen. So refer. You know, Lenape Valley Foundation provides crisis services at Doylestown Hospital, Lower Bucks Hospital, St. Mary's Medical Center. We have a global crisis team. We have a 24/7, 365 hotline. Help is out there. Just call. If you can't ask the question, take that person to a crisis center and we'll ask it for you. But don't let them out of your sight. And that whole time you can tell them, I want you to live. Okay? I want you to live. So remember that sometimes it's hard. Sometimes young folks specifically, and this is, you know, throughout the film, I think they did a great job of displaying this, that they just had a hard time talking to the adults, and they were terrified that they were going to get in trouble. And there was this secretiveness of keeping what was going on, you know, under wraps, so no one would find out. Okay, but, you know, get involved. Don't hesitate. Take the lead. You know, pull anybody in. Brothers, sisters, pastors, priests, rabbis, baseball coaches, football coaches. You know, we just really need to have the conversation about suicide as much as we can. You know, we think about like sex education, right? When we have that discussion, teenage pregnancy goes down, contraction of STDs goes down, right? That's what we've learned from that conversation. Same thing with drunk driving. When we talk about giving your keys up, right? Drinking and driving goes down. So we need to talk about suicide because then that will go down, okay? So of course, when you've helped somebody who's been struggling, you've gotten them help, following up with them, seeing how they're doing, are they engaging in the treatment that was connected to them, is really important. It lets them know that you care, okay? So remember, when you apply QPR, you plant the seed of hope. Hope helps prevent suicide. Hope is the cornerstone, okay? Don't be afraid to ask the question, okay? Because it's not going to increase suicidality. It's just not. It's actually going to open the door to talk about it. That's the biggest myth out there. When we talk about it, it's going to increase. And actually, research shows that it's not true. It decreases the more we talk about this. So we hope that this conversation continues. That is the hope, okay? Some sources there, and we're going to get ready to do our panel.